Hey friends, David Nuno here with TexAgs Rewind presented by our good friends at Specs, 4-time National Retailer of the Year. And we're in the Rollo Insurance Studio getting ready to take the Rollo Insurance Studio on the road as we head over to Denver to talk a little NCAA tournament, A&M versus Yale on Thursday. Nick, your favorite part of the show?
Luke Evangelist.
Why?
Just because he's my buddy.
Okay. Kay Naley's going on that trip. It's going to be fun. All right, Reed, you tell me your favorite part of the show.
I think Josh Pate. I did a lot of research on him last night, and I did go into like a rabbit hole on his Instagram.
Yeah.
And
I did use some of your stuff too.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
The Sanders.
Talking about Deion Sanders. That was good.
That,
yeah. We talked about spring games, doing like a dual practice slash team coming to visit you spring game. So that was fun to discuss. We had James Jones on the show, if you're wondering who that is. That's the Yale head coach. Might be my favorite head coach today. All right, that guy was awesome. He was fantastic on the show. And OB, we had OB on the show. He's driving us to Austin. If we don't make it, you know why. It's the Rewind.
If you just see Ivy League and think, okay, and you associate it with how your football team would do against an Ivy League football team, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because they typically play good basketball. They play within themselves.
Within themselves. That's a great way to phrase it. And it's interesting, the amount of people I'm hearing from predicting an upset. It's like, I don't want to say overwhelming, but Aggies that I know that are diehards, like, man, I don't think we're going to win this. I'm worried about this one. And you should be worried because it's the tournament and these kind of things happen. But I'm not as worried as I typically am, OB.
Well, worried, I don't think is the right word. I think you should respect your opponent. They absolutely respect your opponent, and especially in this case. Now, I was listening to Sirius Radio, some national show yesterday, and one of the hosts was picking Yale to win.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people just want to pick upsets.
Well, yes, they do. They look for what is the upset. And
who's the 13? Let's go.
And you look at what Yale did last year. And, A&M lost its last game. And, other than the win over Auburn, they had not played great ball for last 3 or 4 games. So, yeah, they look at that and say, this would look like a team that was ripe for an upset. But I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. I'm still going to typically go with the team that I think is more athletic and more physical.
So Saturday
down. And more battle tested, by the way.
Josh, I think Deion Sanders is so famous that within a year or two apart, you can go from thinking he is just what's wrong with college football and you don't like his bravado and this and that. And at the same time, like, man, that's a really good idea. I like the idea of spring games with other teams, which has been brought up before, but he's actually got the stones to say, let's go do it. And looks like Fran Brown wants to do it too.
Yeah, I think that when people have said it in the past, it's been, very abstract of, hey, I wish we had real games for spring. That's where it ends. What you always needed was you needed a plan, and then you needed a runway long enough for the plan to be able to take off. I think we are seeing a little confluence of events here that I think is going to yield fruit on this front. All right, the first one is everybody's looking for money now. Every program's looking for added revenue streams. And I've known this part. I have known that media partners are there. CBS is there. Fox is there. ESPN, they've always been there. They've always looked at their spring lineup. It's desolate. After March Madness, there's nothing. And they have said, we would love to have inventory to put on these shelves. We will pay for inventory to put on these shelves. Well, if you're cash strapped, or you're looking for added revenue streams, imagine ESPN giving you $1.5 or $2 million to play a spring game, and you go pay your FCS opponent that you would pay in the fall to come in, and you still end up making money, plus you have an actual real-life simulated event for the fans. The other part of that, David, I was talking to a couple of coaches about this yesterday that want to do it, is what stands in your way? And I asked every one of them, and many of them had spoken to their conference commissioners, and the feedback from the conference commissioners was as you would expect in a sport as loose as college football. It's, we don't think you're allowed to do it, but we're not sure because we don't know the rule. Like, it's just one of those classic, we haven't done it because no one else has ever done it before. So I think whoever's first, you'll have a ton of people tripping over themselves to not be third. Everyone wants to be second. Everyone wants to do it as soon as they figure out it's safe to do. I think this will happen. Now, I'm going to do a segment on my show tonight about this, because every time you mention a good idea, like I think we should breathe oxygen, I think we should drink water, there's going to be someone who comes back and says, I don't know, it doesn't sound like such a great idea.
You've been there for a minute. You've been with Yale for quite a while. Talk about your time there, establishing a culture, then recreating that culture through many different incarnations.
Well, yeah, it's been a minute, like you said. I started when I was 35 years old back in 1999. And you never would have thought that, 26 years later, I'd be still sitting in the same seat for the most part. That wasn't something that went through my mind. I didn't get into the job thinking that this was going to happen. You know how college basketball is. It's a rarity to have an opportunity to be at one place this long. I do have a daughter who's 28 years old, and she told me when she was like 12 that I couldn't get another job until she graduated high school. So I guess I took that and kept it moving a little bit. And we've got to win a championship here in my third year, and we were pretty much even there, around 500 for the most part throughout those rest of the year, although we were really good in our league, finishing in the top half each and every year. But it hasn't been to the last 10 or 15 years that we've started to really move the ball in the right direction and have a program and build a program that you could feel really good about and have a great deal of success. And over the last 10 years, it's been nothing short of amazing for us and our community in Yale Nation.
So you're one of these teams that people look at when brackets come out, even before. I remember seeing Yale A&M matchups before the brackets came out, like, ooh, you don't want to get Yale. What is it about your teams that you all are fearless when it takes on some of the bigger opponents last year with Auburn, I think in 2016 Baylor as well?
Well, I think what happens is that, coaches have an idea who we are. I know Buzz Williams does a great job, and he's a tremendous coach, savant in a lot of ways with the game of basketball. But the community and people around don't really understand what Ivy League basketball is all about. They think of a slow down, backdoor kind of a game. But those of us who really understand basketball know that we're really pretty good. Our best player from last year, Danny Wolf, transferred, and he went to Michigan, and he's going to be an NBA lottery pick. And he played for us last year when we played Auburn. And we lost another kid, Matt Noling, as a grad transfer to USC. And we lost our best shooter in the history of Yale basketball in terms of our percentage, August Mahoney. So we lost those three guys, and somehow we're better offensively and defensively.
Have you gotten more encouraged for A&M, or have you started to get a little bit more panicky?
Well, so initially, probably about a week or two ago, when I was just looking at who was probably going to be a 12, who was going to be a 13, who was going to be a 14, depending on what seed A&M would get, I knew that Yale was probably a team that A&M wanted to avoid on the 13 line. Mm-hmm. Between Yale and High Point, there's definitely a drop-off between Yale and High Point, and then I think the other two are like Akron and I can't remember who the other 14,
but there's a drop
13 seed is, but there's a drop-off. And that's just who A&M was matched up with. You can't do anything about it. You simply have to go play the game. Because Yale, to me, when I initially looked at it, I was like, man, they are built exactly how you want to build a team to beat A&M.
Yeah.
They can take away A&M's offensive rebounding. They can take away their best player. They've got the 3-time Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year. And they can shoot the three. So that is 3 areas that if you were building a team to beat A&M, you would build a team like Yale. But when the more I look at the matchup, I'm like, Yale's interior defense, like even with the 3-time Ivy League Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, they're still 117th in defense. They're giving up 80 and 90 points to Ivy League offenses. If A&M plays their game and is physical and uses their athleticism, this should be an A&M win. And so I've been seesawing back and forth. I'm like, Yale does all these great things, but A&M's been doing these things well in their formula against the best competition all year. This is a team that, when you look at all the ratings and metrics, would have been A&M's 6th or 7th toughest opponent in non-conference. So I've seen A&M put it together against more talented teams, but can they do it for 40 minutes in March? That's the key.
All right, so some of the bigger opponents that Yale took on. Was it Purdue? How do they rebound against them? Do we know that? Reed, look
I
that up.
don't have it off the top of my head.
Look at some of their big-time opponents and how they rebounded, because I
Yeah.
hear that they're a very good rebounding team.
Yeah, they played Yale. They played.
They played themselves,
Of course,
yeah,
they played
yeah.
themselves. They played Purdue. They played Akron, but that's about it. They played Minnesota and lost, and Minnesota was not very good. But their defensive rebounding is the key. Offensive rebounding is not really their game. Total rebounding, they're similar in number to A&M. A&M's top 10. Yale is top 30 nationally in total rebounding.
All right, Reed, tell the people, and I'm trying to think of something clever to make you do, but just tell the people.
Y'all know what to do. Or
Did
text.
you look at your notes? You know what to tell them to do.
Yeah, no, I'm just making sure it's all
Making
clean.
sure, okay.
Yeah. Make sure to text the Groove hotline. Comment on Instagram, or not Instagram, on
You can
Twitter.
comment on Instagram,
Or
we'll take it.
yeah,
We'll
have
respond.
Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, all of the social medias. Make sure and comment on YouTube while you're watching the live, or on the TexAgs website. It makes our job a lot easier.
Yeah, good answer. We'll see you guys next time.